All right, I think we've got pretty much everybody there, so we will kick off the webinar. As I said, for anyone that missed out, my name is Gabby and I am part of the sales team here at Coral Expeditions based in Cairns. I will also have a lucky guest joining us today, Ian Morris, who's one of our guest lecturers, and I will introduce him later to in the webinar. So thanks for taking the time to join us today and explore one of the most vast and ancient natural landscapes in the world, the Kimberley. So we're going to have a bit of a question and answer section at the end. There is a chat section in this webinar. So if you haven't had a chance to ask any of your questions yet when you registered, you can pop them in the chat section and we'll try our best to get to them at the end of the webinar. If for some reason we don't answer your question at the end of the webinar, we will contact you after, or you can contact our reservations team. All right, let's get started. Perfect. So today's focus, it's taking you on a journey with Coral Expeditions to give you an insight of the Kimberley's vast and rugged coastline, which has been shaped by the powerful forces of nature. The Kimberley is steeped in ancient cultures and is one of the most beautiful and remote wilderness areas in the world. For those of you that are actually new to Coral Expeditions, we have operated for over 40 years and always with a single purpose: to take small groups of like-minded explorers to remote places with expert guides, warm Australian hospitality and guidance. So to begin our Kimberley journey today, I'm going to give you a sneak peek at what you can expect from one of our experienced expeditions in the remote wilderness of the Kimberley region. Enjoy. Wow, pretty incredible. And that's just 2 minutes of what you could experience on our 10-night Kimberley cruise. So you can really see why the Kimberley is a bucket list trip of a lifetime experience, which will leave you with memories that you're going to have forever and ever. So in the 90s, Coral Expeditions, we completed our first Kimberley voyage as a first ever expedition cruise operator to explore the region. So out of the 40 years Coral Expeditions have been operating, 30 of those years have been exploring the Kimberley. Being one of the original Australian flagged expedition pioneers, this has allowed us to curate the perfect expedition cruise the Kimberley has to offer. Our expert guides and crew will share their expansive knowledge and passion for this region from so many years of experience. So in the Kimberley, knowledge and experience, it's everything, given the huge tidal flows and the fact that much of the region is uncharted and so remote. This is very important. So all our vessels are Australian flagged, which means we spend more time in the Kimberley, have the best local knowledge, and you don't need to spend all your valuable time travelling into international waters like many other lines do. Our vessels are operated by an Aussie and New Zealand crew, and you will get to experience the ultimate warm Australian hospitality throughout your voyage. So, whether this is enjoying an ice cold beer or glass of wine on Veranda Beach with sand between your toes, like you can see in this beautiful image here, or it might be on board our vessels, where we encourage a natural Australian style service and an open interaction between our guests and our crew. So one where you can watch your dinner being prepared in open galleys by our chefs, or go into the bridge and have a chat with the captain, or just simply you could sit back and relax in the company of experienced guest lecturers and other like-minded travellers on board. So this really is a true expedition style trip. So our three Australian flagged expedition ships, they are designed for the Kimberley region. They feature wraparound decks, private balconies on some of our staterooms, and outdoor dining. So you can enjoy the famous Kimberley sunsets. The shallow drafts and high movability of our purpose designed expedition ships, it lets you get closer on coastal adventures to explore the sheltered bays and hidden inlets that are inaccessible to those larger ships. All right, so as I mentioned, we have three vessels in our fleet. So the first one is Coral Discoverer. Now, Coral Discoverer is our yacht-like vessel, which has 36 staterooms and a maximum of 72 passengers. Coral Discoverer is now 15 years old, did just undergo a refurb in December last year. She is loved by our our loyal regulars for intimate feel and small numbers. So it's a really, as I said, intimate experience. She's domestic focused, so does the Kimberley, Cape York and Arnhem Land, Torres Straits, which she's about to take off on, and the Great Barrier Reef, as well as Tassie seasons each year. The next vessel in our fleet is Coral Adventurer, which started operating in 2019. Has 60 staterooms with a maximum of 120 passengers on board. So there is a very familiar design across all three ships. They are built for expedition cruising. So on Coral Adventurer, there are two large 55 square metre suites on board and a range of lovely indoor and outdoor dining and seating areas to enjoy those views. So outside the Kimberley season, she's deployed to Papua New Guinea, Japan and Philippines, and also other parts of the west coast of Australia. Now, this is Coral Geographer, which is a sister ship to Coral Adventurer. So Coral Geographer is our newest ship. She was delivered only in March 2021. Has 60 staterooms with a maximum of 120 passengers on board as well. So Coral Geographer has 6 suites and an internal lift that goes all the way to the Vista Bar on the top deck for ease of access. And when not in the Kimberley, does trips across to the small islands of the Indian Ocean, other parts of Western Australia outside the Kimberley, South Australia, New Zealand, and our newly released sub-Antarctic voyage. So all of our ships, every room is outward facing, so you never miss out on the view. And they are purpose built for those subtropical climates with plenty of outdoor alfresco areas to enjoy. All of our rooms are twin share. We don't have any interconnecting rooms, and we do have the option for solo travellers as well. Now, onto our expedition fleet. So, explorer tenders is what you can see in the image here, or as we like to call them, the safari jeeps of the sea. So these are really fun and great for those shore excursions. So they are designed with a specialised hydraulic launching mechanism, so it makes it very easy for our guests to get on board. They simply just go to the back deck of the ship and then they'll load onto the tenders and be lowered down to the water and be off on their journey under 5 minutes. Each tender can actually seat 72 passengers, so nobody's waiting. Everybody gets to head off at the same time. Open views, as you can see, and a nice breeze, so air conditioned. And they are designed for guest comfort with padded seats, a roof for weather protection, and we do also have an onboard toilet on board as well. They have a front ramp, which is suitable for beach landings, so easy walk off, and we will on this voyage do a lot of wet and dry landings. So there is audio equipment on board as well for a clear commentary, so you don't miss out on what our expedition leaders are having to say. Now, we also have our zodiacs, which are really fun. So the inflatable zodiacs, they just provide another exciting and flexible option for shore excursions and navigating narrow inlets and waterways. So they're also a great way that you can get close to nature. And we use the zodiacs where possible, where we can't use our explorer tenders. Okay. So Coral Expeditions was one of the first cruise operators to employ interpretive guides on our cruises, which is a tradition that continues today. So each trip includes a mix of our full-time guest lecturers who join the expedition team and our special guest lecturers who are chosen for specific knowledge on the particular voyage. So they immerse our guests on the unique wildlife environments we visit, and that is what expedition cruising is really all about. So, having guided expeditions in the region for over 3 decades, we know the nooks and crannies that a lot of others don't. Our expedition team provide local expertise with a strong understanding on the unique landscapes, flora and fauna, and Indigenous cultures of the regions we're visiting. So, our passionate expedition leaders, they're on board and they take our guests on every excursion. So, we don't hand over to land based tour companies. We focus on more time ashore with 2 excursions daily where possible. So the shore excursions, they generally have 2 options. So this might vary from an easy coastal flat beach walk to something that might be a bit more challenging, like a hike on uneven ground, bit of an incline to a nice viewing point to a point of interest, but there is always something for everybody. Okay, so before I introduce you to one of our team, Ian Morris, who is an expert on the Kimberley and joining us here in Cairns today, I'm just going to play a short video of one of our longest serving expedition leaders, Jamie Anderson. So Jamie has been with the company now for over 20 years, and he certainly is a true Kimberley pioneer, just like Ian Morris is. Jamie is one of our most experienced team members, and if you have been on a voyage with us before, you probably are quite familiar with Jamie and recognise his face. So this is just an insight that you can enjoy on Jamie's insight to the Kimberley.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jamie, your expedition leader, giving you the final call. You'll need hat, sunscreen, water, as it will be warm. Optional footwear, folks. Thank you. I'm James Anderson, mostly called Jamie, and I've been in this role for around 17 years with the company. Back in 2002, I was teaching, and I was asked by a friend of mine if I was interested in doing a job. I was fed up with teaching, and so I said, I'll give it a go. He put me on the Kimberley run for the first time. People travelling the Kimberley will see a massive diversification of not only animals and plants, but also the rock systems. Geology is huge in the Kimberley due to its age. It is the most remote wilderness area left in Australia, really. And luckily, it's still like that. It's not overrun yet. More and more vessels are coming in, but at the same time, when it comes down to it, there's still plenty of places you can go without seeing anybody. The remoteness makes it one of the most magnificent trips around. You can't get bored anywhere that we go. Everything's new. The weather changes, the light changes. You've also got the marine side of things. These are with the whales and dolphin. Also going up into river systems that nobody else goes into. It is the most unique reef in the world. It comes out of water, exposes itself twice a day, and it depends on the tidal level as to how much of the reef is exposed. So what we've seen on our cruise this particular trip has been just extraordinary. The Indigenous populations, there are three different groups that we go through. We go through the Wunnabal Gambera people, we go through the Warra country, and we go through the Bardi country. They departed basically in 1942, and so we're lucky to go through those particular different areas, and it's nice if we can see them along the way.
Great. So we're so pleased Jamie gave us a go and still working for Coral 20 years later. I feel like listening to Jamie, it really goes to show his passion and his enthusiasm for the Kimberley, and you know you will be in good hands with Jamie. So we're lucky enough, as I said, to have another enthusiastic Kimberley pioneer live with us today. So we have Ian Morris, who's one of our fantastic guest lecturers and has been with the company for over 30 years. And he's going to give you a run through on his first-hand knowledge of the rugged Kimberley and cover the highlights that you can expect on the 10-night Kimberley expedition, which departs April through to September from Darwin or Broome on board all three of our vessels. Over to you, Ian.
Hi, folks. Thanks for joining us. And like Jamie, I would really like to get you enthusiastic about this little piece of Australia that's so little known by most modern Aussies. And this company has specialised in getting people unique access to both the natural systems and the people who've lived there for so long. And there's a real story to be told there. You really have to experience it to believe it. And I've done hundreds of cruises now with this company, and every one I look forward to the following one. They're all different. We see different things each time. Just when we think we know it all, we don't. We see something that amazes us. So I always look forward to getting back onto that Kimberley coastline. And as I said, there's nothing like it anywhere else on the Australian coastline. So you really have to see it to believe it. Now, if we're going from east to west, the first big feature we see is this one in front of us, which is the edge of the Kimberley Plateau, where it's been lifted up way up above sea level, an old sedimentary formation. And what you're looking at there is the King George Falls, which are dropping down beautiful wet season rainwater over the edge of the escarpment and into the saltwater, into the ocean. So we can bring our explorers up this lovely, long and very beautiful river till we get to this point. We can't go any further, obviously. And this is where the freshwater comes in. And it's running for a good part of the dry season in the north as well. So most people get to see it as a waterfall and a product of the previous wet season. Now, also up there, we've got lots of evidence of human occupation. Now, the Kimberley, Australia in general, but the Kimberley particularly has some very, very old rock artwork, which is now seen as some of the oldest human evidence on the planet. Some of the rock art styles go way back many, many thousands of years. The one you can see there behind Jamie has a lot in common with a very old style of African rock art. We think perhaps there was a connection way, way back beyond 20,000 years. And so what Jamie's actually talking about there are stains on the rock. The art's gone. The ochre that the Aboriginal people used originally has gone. It's washed away. And what you're seeing is a stain, almost like a rusty mark on the rock from the original paint. It is so, so old. It's amazing to be able to get right up close in our explorers and see it like that. So all along the edge of that escarpment, about 1/3 of the escarpment goes straight out over the ocean and drops into the sea. So we see waterfalls like this. This is the top of Mitchell Falls, another place we can get to by using helicopters from the coastline to lift us up and drop us down on top of the plateau so we can see the water actually starting to go over the edge like you can see there. And once it gets down there, you get a lot of rivers once it hits the ocean, and then it drops a lot of silt. So what you can see there are extensive mudflats that have been colonised by forests of mangroves. So we can take our explorers, you can see there's 2 explorers down there, we take them right up these little mangrove channels, tidal channels, and there we see things like specialised reptiles, crocodiles particularly, and other types of snakes and lizards that live in that mangrove habitat. We see snub-fin dolphins, stingrays, dugong, all sorts of amazing animals that are associated with those tidal forests. Another point here, we call this King Cascade, where a lovely freshwater river flows straight down into tidal water. And again, we can pull our Explorer right to the foot of the rock there and stand out in the deck of the Explorer and have a nice shower in perfectly crystal clear fresh water. Named after one of our early navigators, Philip Parker King. So we call that King Cascade. And also associated with Philip Parker King is this wonderful old boab tree. Now, you know, boabs are closely related to a big African family. This one is the only species we have in Australia. And engraved on the trunk of this, the double trunk of this one, is the word mermaid, which was Philip Parker King's boat, the Mermaid, Her Majesty's Cutter, HMC on the top there, and then underneath it's got carved in 1820. So it's a historic tree as far as European colonisation of Australia is concerned. And then just offshore, we have amazing reefs. Now, this is Montgomery Reef, one of the largest platform reefs in the world. It's enormous, hundreds of square kilometres of reef that only comes out of the water when the tide drops from the top down to the bottom. About a third of the way down, out comes this reef. It's exposed by the dropping tide, and we can get our explorers right in and have a close look at this massive coral formation. All sorts of little marine animals. It's quite different to the barrier reef, but the corals that have concreted this reef into place are pretty much related to the ones over on the barrier reef. They just grow differently here. We have much bigger tides here, very big tides, which at low tide gives us access to a lot of beautiful marine creatures. And you've probably heard of the horizontal waterfalls. This is a picture of one of our Zodiacs and some passengers going up into one branch of the horizontal falls, which is like, well, it's a break in a mountain range, really, and the tide surges through it. Now, this part of Australia has the highest tides of anywhere. It's up to around 13 metres difference between high and low. That's a big tide. And so for that amount of water to squeeze through a gap in 6.5 hours and then turn around and squeeze back out again makes a pretty turbulent sort of thing. And we've got to get through into there. It's very exciting for the passengers. We do it in a nice, safe way. And you can really feel the power of nature when you go and have a look at the horizontal falls. To show you how old this country is, that's a kind of a transect of one of the old ridges in the King Leopold Range. An old ancient range, they say, was pushed up way, way back when the Kimberley, which was an island in itself, reconnected with mainland Australia and caused that kind of disruption to the geology. Now, what you're looking at there is sedimentary rock, which is normally horizontal, but as you can see, it's curved right around, it's vertical. And that shows you the enormous amount of pressure that went on when the Kimberley, way, way back in the Earth's history, reconnected with mainland Australia. And it's just, the features are beautiful. So we often get way out offshore to low-lying islands like the Lacepede Islands here. And this is where the bulk of our seabirds breed. It's a safe place. There's virtually no predators while they're breeding. They breed in their hundreds of thousands in waves of different species. What you can see there are brown boobies flying around the Explorer there. And they spend a few months raising their chicks on the Lacepede Islands, then they move offshore again and other types of seabirds move in. So every time we go there, we see a different kind of colony of seabirds breeding. So in the Kimberley, we've got unique wildlife. We call it endemic wildlife. Special things live there. What we're looking at here are up in the top left there, the saltwater crocodile, and they've become quite used to us and relatively friendly. So we can approach them. They know us. They know our vessels. So we get up nice and close and get some good photos of them doing natural things, feeding on fish and so forth, chasing each other around. The bird below is the rainbow bee-eater, and they're a migrant that comes down through Southeast Asia onto the Australian continent and right down to the bottom of Australia each year in their sort of migratory patterns. And so do the humpback whales. You can see the tail of a humpback there. We see them frequently along the Kimberley coastline, particularly about June, July, August period when the females come up from the Antarctic to have their babies.
Great. Thanks very much, Ian. That was amazing. When are we going?
As soon as possible.
Perfect. Well, we appreciate you giving us an insight on what everybody could expect on our 10-night Kimberley cruise. It's certainly an amazing part of the world. So we're coming to the end of our webinar now. So this is a good opportunity to ask any questions in the chat section that you may have. As I mentioned at the beginning, if you did ask a question when you registered, we do have that, and we will try and answer all your questions at the end. So we're just going to play a quick video, and this will give you a chance to comment any of those questions you might have. Enjoy. Great. So, Ian, I might hand it back over to you because we've got a few questions that I'm sure are suitable for you, as you're the expert. So I'll just pop the camera on you, Ian. There we go. Okay, perfect. So can you tell the guests when they can expect, I know you did cover it a bit, when they can expect to see whales, but what the sort of different seasons are that they can expect? So waterfalls, dry seasons, things like that.
Well, yes, as you know, the Kimberley has these strong seasons, a very wet and a very dry. We actually commenced our season soon after the wet, when the waterfalls are thundering. So if you want to see massive amounts of fresh water thundering out into the ocean, early in the year is a good time for that. And then it gets back to normal. The waterfalls drop back to a dry season level. And about June, July, the female humpback whales come up the coastline from the Antarctic and have their babies, and then following them are the males who come to display to each other and show off. And we often get whales doing amazing things around our vessel, showing off to each other. And some of the guests get remarkable photos. And then once the females have had their calves and the calves have grown up a bit, mating season occurs, and then that takes another 12 months for the females to develop next year's young ones. So that all happens about July, August are the best months to see whales, but we can see them either side of that as well. And things like crocodiles, they breed in the wet season, and then the males move away from the breeding areas and they go out to sea. We passed big 4-metre crocodiles floating along out in the shipping lanes, way off the coast. Crocodiles go on holidays. You didn't know that, did you? And by the time the next wet season comes, they're right back where their breeding areas are, looking after their wives and children.
Great. And why choose expedition style cruising?
Well, there's quite a difference. The whole objective of this expedition style cruising is to get the guests in as close to nature as possible. So it's not all about relaxing on the ship. We have a lovely 5-star ship and we do relax on it, but we get you out there so you can actually be right beside a wild crocodile and realise it's not there to eat you. It's actually quite happy to have you there, and it's doing its own thing. And the same applies to dolphins and all sorts of things that we interact with. So expeditions get you alongside nature, right? And you can really feel like you're getting your money's worth. You're seeing the animals, and we see different ones every cruise. Things we're not expecting pop up. We found lots of new records of species along the Kimberley coastline, which makes the West Australian Museum really happy. Sometimes it's guests who get the best photos of them, which we can then send to the museums and things. So essentially, expedition cruising gets you right into nature.
And speaking of nature and crocodiles, someone's actually asked if they can snorkel on this trip. But how much swimming? Is there any swimming involved?
Well, what we do, as you can imagine, you don't swim alongside the 4-metre crocodiles. I've done it myself, and I've dived with them and done all sorts of crazy things. But essentially, we don't do it just for the good of everybody. But we do swim in places where there's fresh water. Some of the lovely creeks and pools, wherever we can get to, where the crocodiles don't go, we can go there and swim. So wherever possible, we get the guests to freshwater bodies above the ocean where we can have a nice, relaxed swim.
Amazing. And how much sort of walking and hiking is involved, and what sort of footwear should they be taking on this cruise?
Okay, well, if you're into walking, we've got plenty of that for you. We always have options. So if it's not a day for walking for you, or you're not used to walking, you don't really want to walk, the Explorer cruise will take you on a cruise while the others are walking. But for those that walk, you can have anything from bare feet, which all the Aboriginal people have over there, to good, strong walking shoes, whatever suits you, I think is the best sort of thing. We're essentially walking on sandstone. There's a bit of spinifex grass around. So, if you're not used to that sort of thing, wear appropriate footwear, but it's really quite a foot-friendly place to go to. I'm always barefoot. I'm quite used to it, but yeah.
There's a lot of wet landings, isn't there?
Yeah, there are wet landings.
Yeah.
Yes, so you can wear sort of wet, dry footwear,
Yep.
and then leave it on the Explorer when you get ashore, and put it back on later, and walk in walking shoes, or it's really up to the individuals who know what their feet are like to do the walking. But yeah, a lot of people just get used to the barefoot side of it too. So it's completely up to
Get
the
close with
individual.
nature.
Get
Yeah.
close with nature. Yeah, that's what I reckon.
Perfect. And what's sort of some unusual creatures that we might get lucky enough to see?
Well, there are lots and lots of things. As you know, a lot of the wildlife in tropical Australia is nocturnal. So we only go ashore in the day. We don't really do much at night, although we do explorer runs with spotlights and have a look at crocodiles in rivers sometimes.
Ooh.
If that's available, we'll do it. But essentially, you're looking at tracks on the beaches that tell you that there are certain quolls, that there are certain goannas and so forth occupying that area. And we see, we put a remote camera on a tree once because we saw some fruit there that had been chewed by an animal with very strong teeth. And when we put our remote cameras in, it came back the following day, we had footage of the golden back tree rat, which is one of the rarest native animals in the Kimberley.
Wow.
So, as I say, a lot of our wildlife's nocturnal, but we do see a lot of things as well. So you never know what to expect. But goannas, if I'm lucky enough to find a python or something like that, we always pass the peace python around the guests and pat it on the head and then put it back in the bush. We're opportunists, I suppose, in that sense. A lot of wonderful bird life. So if you've got binoculars, bring those, and cameras. If you're into birds or mammals or reptiles, cameras are good. We get a lot of good photos on these excursions.
Perfect. And one last question for you, Ian. Do you think there's a difference to parting from Broome or Darwin?
I get asked that all the time, and you know my answer is doesn't matter. It's good both ways. And if you depart from Broome, we go out to the Lassipede Islands first and see all these amazing seabirds, and it puts everybody in a colossal frame of mind. If you're coming from Darwin, we go first up into that King George River we saw earlier, and see these marvellous rock faces and geology and waterfalls and things. So really, to me, it's all about who we are. We're a boatload of passengers who are all getting to know each other. Day one, we're all new and we don't know each other. By day 10, we're like a big family, and each day gets better and better, whether you're going south or north. I really don't think it matters. So we'll leave that up to you to decide.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Ian. Okay, so we've got a couple of other questions as well. I'll just finish off with those. So with the helicopter flight that Ian mentioned over Mitchell Falls, this is an optional extra which you can book on board. It is operated by a third-party helicopter company. It is approximately $695 per person, but as I said, you can book that on board and you'll be given more information when on board about that as well. And then we had someone ask, do you need to bring a beach towel? So we do have towels on board that you can use to take off the boat. But if you prefer to bring your own beach towel, you're more than welcome to. And another question we had, is there a dress code for dining in the evenings? There is no dress code. We just ask that you wear something that's relaxed, smart casual, something comfortable. And one last question, do you need to bring your passport? So you don't need to bring your passport for our domestic voyages, just some sort of photo ID is asked for you to bring along. All right, and I believe that is all of our questions. If you do have anything else though, guys, please reach out to our reservations team, and we're always here happy to answer any questions that you might have. Okay, so we do have an offer for any new bookings. So for the Kimberley 2023 10-night voyage, we can offer a $500 per person travel credit. As I said, this is for any new bookings. We will also include complimentary 4 gig of Wi-Fi and complimentary deposit protection. So to take up this offer, you can either book direct with us. You can see our details on the screen there, the email address and phone number for our reservations team, which is based in Cairns. Otherwise, you can certainly use this offer through your preferred travel agent as well. So just reach out to them and they can help you get that offer as well. Just to recap that, guys, it is for any new Kimberley bookings for the 2023 season. And then that wraps up the webinar. So we will send out a recorded version of this soon, shortly. So if you have any friends or family that weren't able to view the webinar today, you can forward that on to them. Or if you just want to simply rewatch it again, you can watch it as many times as you like. We will have another webinar next week with the lovely Ian Morris joining us again next week. It's going to be on Wednesday, the 22nd of March, and it's at 3:30 Queensland time, okay? So please feel free to join us again. We will be recovering the same things that we covered today, but again, we'll send out a recorded version of this to anyone that wants it. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us today, and we look forward to seeing you in the Kimberley. Thank you.